live yet? I don't see that red button.
Yep.
We are live?
Right now.
Oh, okay. Ha ha.
I really thought that if I warned you, like, I'm pressing it now, you would have caught it this time. Not so much. That's okay, though. It's okay.
I'm slow.
Listen,
slow on the uptake.
It takes a while to get used to it. I'm sure by the time quarantine is done,
Yes.
you'll actually be used to it.
I look like Ryan Seacrest. A chubby Ryan Seacrest. That's exciting.
Sometimes Ryan Seacrest really bothers me.
I just don't like
I think it's because, like, he owns the world.
Yes. I don't like that he's everywhere.
Right? And it's just not fair. Like, he works on the Kardashians.
Uh-huh.
He works on American Idol, which, like, why is that show still on?
I don't know.
I thought it was, like, going away. And then they were like, oh, just kidding, we're here. Who does that?
And have you watched it since, like, the Katy Perry?
No, the last time I watched it was when Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey was on, and I only and I only watched it to watch Nicki and Mariah go at each other.
They didn't like each other.
No, but it was beautiful TV. And I will also go on record and say I am Team Nicki. So Mariah Carey, if you're watching this.
Does Mariah watch this little Facebook Live, does she?
I honestly don't know, but she doesn't do live anymore. I feel like nobody hears from her until it's Christmas time. Wait, okay. Your wife asked if this is a Moscow Mule. It's not. It's just a Moscow Mule cup. It says happy anniversary on it.
Oh.
And I would like to let everyone know that my husband bought this for himself before we were even engaged.
Wow. He must have known he had you wrapped around his little finger.
It was on sale at TJ Maxx. He was like, yes, love that. It's like, okay. Anyways, hi, Mom. Hey, Dad.
Oh, hello, Mom and Papa Tally.
So how's your week going?
I'm tired of seeing my own house.
Okay.
I love my house. I enjoy, but I'm ready to go somewhere. I'm ready to go on vacation.
Yes.
I'm supposed to go to Hawaii. Oh, they've closed Hawaii. I never thought I'd have to say that. And so I don't know, and my wife's nervous about going anywhere because of COVID stuff. And I just am like, I think I might want to take a chance. So Big T, there we go.
Really wants that nickname to stick.
It is.
Yeah, watching Big T.
Big T. And does your mom go with Big A? Because Chloe Austin, it says. I didn't mean it that way.
I'm just gonna let you hang yourself. I don't know what to say. What? No, everybody calls my mom Mama Chloe.
Mama Chloe?
Mama
she's
Chloe.
a Big T. But I can call her. So is it Big T and Mama Chloe?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So what about you? How's your week been? Trying to get out of the
just a quick pivot from Big A. I feel like in the beginning of quarantine we were like, oh, it goes up and down, like it goes in waves, right? Mm-hmm. But I am at the same wavelength as you. I'm like, get me out of here. I'm ready for vacation. Next week we are going to see my in-laws. And they're they have a family cabin on a lake, and there's no Wi-Fi. And like, ironically, even though I'm stuck in a house with a toddler all day, every day, I am so looking forward to being in a cabin with like no cell reception.
Uh-huh.
So just like check out.
That's what weird. Let's go drive somewhere where I can lose cell signal.
Mm-hmm. Well, you guys have been going on like random drives I've been seeing. I stalk your wife.
Oh, well, the one to Kentucky?
Yes.
Yeah, that we drove 4.5 hours each way to go through a tunnel that was 22 seconds long.
And
So,
it was supposed to be haunted though, right?
oh yeah, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I loved it, but
was it just as haunted in the middle of the day?
It was haunted with Kentuckians.
Oh, scary people. Scary people out there. 11-hour drive for 22 seconds.
My wife and I should go over to your mom and dad's.
You should. They live on a lake.
Do they really?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. I like to tell people I was very spoiled growing up because you literally woke up, sat on the deck, had a cup of coffee, and you like the lake is right there. The lake is their backyard. And it's the cove part. So like it's part of a big lake and drains into like this small cove. So like no one's there really. My mom said sure anytime, but I really think you pissed her off with the big A thing. I don't know if you actually have an invite.
Well, I didn't mean that. I just saw the Austin. I didn't. What does Jason mean by the? Is that a frog? Frog?
Yes, that's a frog sipping tea. It means
What's that?
That's what it means. It means like Kermit the Frog. Have you ever seen those memes with like Kermit the Frog?
Oh, and he drinks coffee. Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna mind my own business type thing.
I have heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going on this trip, and it's next week, right?
Mm-hmm. It's going to be 8 hours.
Oh, one way?
Yes.
Oh my God! And you're driving, I take it.
Yes.
Oh my God.
You're getting schooled on. That's the tea. Yeah. Hi, Mac.
Wow. And yes, I could lose cell signal by my. Hey, Mac and her friend visited me this week. It was very nice to see another human being.
I was jealous that they came in and saw you. I think they went to the office looking for me because Mac actually asked me if I was there.
Because she said that if you were there, then she wasn't going to stop. So
no, she said that she was looking for me.
Hey, Mike Turner, my man from Florida.
Oh, Florida. Is it still overcast there? We had a meeting with our IT guy, and he was in Florida. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to jump in the pool, but it's overcast." And I'm like, doesn't make me feel better.
What are you doing for 8 hours in a car with a toddler? Like, do you give him things? Does he sleep?
Yeah. Well, so we used to give him. So my husband doesn't let me drive, which like that's fine. I don't want to drive anyways, because.
Yeah, I watched you almost barrel through those ducks yesterday, or geese, or whatever they were.
Listen, let me just tell you that geese have teeth and they attack. Okay? Not getting out of my car if I'm being swarmed with geese. And if I honk the horn in the parking lot, they should all scatter. They didn't. Anyways, so we used to give him my phone, but I really would like to be able to communicate with people because my husband and I also don't talk to each other in the car for 8 hours.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because like I'm in the back with the baby because it's my job to like entertain him. And then my husband's driving, so he picks the music, which always ends up being like a soccer podcast, and I can't understand their accents. And so like I literally have no one to talk to. And so we bought my son a tablet.
Nice.
For long drives. Because both of our parents live exactly 8 hours just in opposite directions. So when we take like long drives, we need something to entertain him.
Is that why you moved to Columbus? That it's the midway point between your parents?
Yes.
Is it?
We were looking for places in Ohio. I said I wouldn't go further than Ohio. And we found Columbus.
And here you are.
Here I am.
You always wanted to be involved in suicide prevention.
Always. When I was a little girl, I would tell my mom, I want to work in suicide prevention.
and here we are.
Here we are.
We do actually enjoy our work. I mean, at least I do. And I mean, it's been rough the last few weeks. I'm not gonna lie. You know, we get some calls and talking to some folks that, you know, not doing real well. So, you know, keep strong, reach out to each other, be kind to one another, be patient, give yourself a little bit of grace. And you know, just be. Thank you. I know you do. It's one of my favorites. So you're going? Are you going? Is it just going to be you three? Is there going to be family when you get to this?
Yeah, so we're going to see family. So we've scheduled everything out so that there's at least 2 weeks in between visits. But first visit is going to be to his family. So he has 3 brothers. One of them is married with a baby.
Okay.
So we're going to meet them and his parents all at the cabin. And we're having like one big birthday celebration.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right. And is this west? This is west, right?
Sure.
Okay. You don't have to tell us. You don't know east from west, do you?
No. I mean, I know, like, never eat shredded wheat.
Are you
going to get lost in a brown paper bag. Don't try me.
Are you going to the wheat?
I think so. Right? Because Jersey is east.
Jersey's east.
Okay, so then Iowa is west.
Okay, yes.
Because we're in the Midwest. Right?
Okay.
Okay. That was today's geography lesson.
And I will never forget, never eat shredded wheat.
You never learned that when you were little?
Never heard that in my life.
What?
No.
In geography class, they like, you know how they would teach you things and then they would teach you like acronyms to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rainbow, the colors of the rainbow is Roy Dubiv.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I got that.
So never eat shredded wheat.
Wow. I got it.
North, southwest.
Yeah, our acronym was Northeast, Southwest, but that was
okay, I'm so sorry that you went to such a fancy school.
Of course, I went to high school before you were born, we found out, which was frightening.
That's true. I made you feel really old with that. That one really stung, huh? This is now the 3rd time that you've brought it up since it happened.
That hurt, man. That one was really rough. So,
Jennifer Stover, hello.
Wow. And Jennifer,
I just realized that you were here.
Jennifer and Mac are having a little family get together here on our Facebook.
Nice little reunion.
You know, speaking of reunions, I think there is a reunion of your friend, correct? Is that who you're going today?
Yes. In my head, I was trying to like think of like a great way to introduce him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't have it. So I'll just bring him in.
Surprise! No introductions needed.
Nothing. But for those who don't know, this is Connor. Connor and I worked in Vermont together in the middle of the night.
Yes.
What station?
WCAX in Burlington, Vermont. It's a CBS affiliate out there.
Ah.
And Keiko was my producer. She did an excellent job bossing me around and making sure that everything was running smoothly. So everything made a clean show, kind of. Sometimes.
Sometimes. There were times that like I'd have to pop in his ear and be like, Connor, pay attention.
Yes. I was gonna say, if our friendship can last that morning show shift, then it can literally last anything and survive anything. So that's why Keiko's my ride or die. And people don't know this, but we were actually twins in a previous life.
What?
We've decided we were twins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you had some stuff done, like, you know, like you had past lives. Like my wife has had some kind of thing where she's seen what she was in a past life or something.
Oh my God, wait, I've always wanted to go to one of those people. They did that on Housewives of Beverly Hills.
I think you need to go and just confirm that we were twins in a past life. But Tony, I think the question for you is, which one do you like more? Do you like right Twix or left Twix?
Yeah. What's that? I'm
Do
freezing.
you like left Twix? Oh.
Do I
Am
like
I freezing?
No, Tony
I-
is.
This technology is too funny.
Oh,
Who's
God.
on first?
What was the question?
Do you prefer left Twix or right Twix?
Like the candy?
Yes.
This body shows I eat both Twix at the same time.
Smart answer.
Very diplomatic. I'll take that.
Thank you.
Because I'm the right twin and Keiko's the left twin. So I was trying to figure out which one you liked more, but clearly you like us the same.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that if you came to Ohio, we would have a ball. Where are you at now?
I am in Providence, Rhode Island, so I still work in news, and I'm working as a reporter at the NBC affiliate out here in Providence.
Excellent. And how have things been here in Ohio and across the nation? There have been a number of protests and hopefully this time some real social change as opposed to past attempts at this. How have things been in Rhode Island?
I think Rhode Island is seeing basically similar things to what the rest of the country is seeing, which is, there is a big swell or uprising of people that really want change. And, we did have a scene a couple weeks ago where, people didn't feel their voices were being heard by talking. So they lit a bunch of police cars on fire and looted our mall. And it was a little bit of a scary scene here in Providence, but I think that we are maybe past that, and it seems that there's starting to be more conversations around what people want, and people feel like they're being heard.
So,
yeah.
How has so you've been out covering it, and elephant in the room, you're Black.
Wait, what?
Wait, who?
Wanted to address that. But how has that kind of impacted you? Because you can't really comment too much on either side being a reporter. So how has that impacted you internally?
I think it's tough. I mean, I took a stance this time around, and I told myself that I was going to take a little bit more of a stance than I have on previous issues or other issues. Because in my mind, this is not a two-sided issue that makes sense. This is a right versus wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like we have the playbook and the manual on how to deal with this issue. Mm-hmm. And we've seen it during the civil rights movement. We know who the good guys are. We know who the bad guys are. So in my mind, when I cover this, as a reporter, it's not a two-sided issue. It's a how do we get to the other side issue. Right. And I think that's what I've been biting my tongue on as a reporter, is how we get there. But I think it's important for me as a Black man, as a journalist, to vocalize that we need to get there because the impacts are felt on the entire Black community. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that you can have millions of people with millions of different walks of life experiences, and they all experience one thing, and that is racism and discrimination. Mm-hmm. And that is what bonds us. And that's probably the only thing we as a race of people, as Black people, can agree on, is that racism is alive and well.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we worked in Vermont, you told me that there was a situation, and I believe it happened after I left. Do you mind sharing that story?
Yeah, so I had covered a story about a guy who had harassed one of our mayors. And our police chief at the time, he had called him out by name in a soundbite. So I used the soundbite, and I can't even remember this guy's name because he is now irrelevant to me. But what he did has made a lasting impact. And he didn't like the fact that he was called out on TV. And because my face and it was my story, he decided to take it upon himself to harass me online. And it started out with just a couple of emails about how he didn't like me, using derogatory terms. I mean, the N-word was used several times. And then over one weekend, it took a turn. And in the course of one weekend, he ended up sending me 67 emails, all various things that he had written. He even went as far to say that he's going to turn the Green Mountains of Vermont red with Black people's blood. I mean, just pretty gruesome and scary things. He sent me pictures with my face superimposed on various images and various interviews. And that's when I took it upon myself to reach out to the police and make sure that they were involved. Because what goes through your mind is, I'm not necessarily, I wasn't scared of what he was saying or doing, because I didn't think that he was strong enough or brave enough to do anything to me physically. But the emails that he was sending were sent to about 75 people. So I was worried of the people that were seeing those emails, because not everybody's online to blow off steam. Some people are online to actually to be inspired to hurt people. And me being such a public figure, especially a reporter out in the field, out in the community, doing various things, I had to put my safety first and alert the police just so they were aware if something had happened.
Wow. I ask you to share that because I feel like sometimes when we talk about racism, it's 2020, and I feel like people think that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, this was last year.
Right.
I mean, and I think that as we've evolved as a society, the racism has evolved as well. And so people now know that to call somebody an N-word or to use those kinds of overtly derogatory terms is inappropriate. Right. But they don't know about the microaggressions. And I think that is the modern day racism. So when somebody tells me, you speak so well, or you dress so nicely, or, you're so educated, it's a lot of times when Black people hear those, we don't hear those as compliments. We hear, you dress so well for a Black person. You speak so well for a Black person. You are so pretty for a Black person. And those are kind of what we are dealing with now. We're now dealing with microaggressions, because you can't help the people that are saying the N-word, and they have decided and they've made up their mind that they want to be ignorant. But now we are in a phase where people are unknowingly ignorant to what they are saying and how that comes across.
Is there any, trying to figure out how to put this, how do you kind of combat, and I don't want to say combat, that's the word I'm going to use because can't think of the right one, I guess correct. So when people are using these microaggressions, and I want to believe that people don't realize that that's how they're being taken, how do you kind of go, what is the best way to go about being like, hey, by the way?
I mean, it's two phases, right? One is you have to be able to call it out when you see it. I think if people are unaware, they need to wake up and know what they are doing and what they are saying and what their words and how their words are impacting those that are listening. That's phase one. Phase two is people have to address this with more compassion and more empathy and more understanding. We do too much listening like this and not enough listening with our ears. And it's more people are listening to be told that they are right. And in these situations, you're probably not going to be told that you are right.
Right.
So when somebody calls you out, you have to be able to say, when the person that's calling you out needs to be able to say, this is what you said, and this is how it made me feel.
Okay.
The response should be, no, I didn't. That's not what I said, or that's not what I meant. It should be, why did it make you feel a certain way? And then that should be the dialogue, is why this is why I'm feeling this way. Why did I feel this? Because I think that oftentimes it becomes too combative. Nobody wants to be called a racist, because everybody knows that that's a bad thing. But the point is, if somebody calls you a racist or says that a comment you made was racist, that means it had an impact on how they feel about themselves. So it needs to not be, why do you, like, oh my gosh, no, that's not true, I'm not racist. It needs to be, why do you think I'm a racist? Because that means that I need to do something better, and I need to have better awareness.
And I would think that these conversations are much better in person than on social media. Because to your point of that guy in Vermont, you know, the only reason I'm guessing that he had enough, quote unquote, you know, gumption to say those terrible things. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The big A.
Yeah, big A. Was because
Come on again.
I mean, I don't know the guy. I don't know what you're talking about. But I'm guessing that face to face, he wouldn't have said it like that. I mean, maybe he would. I don't know. Maybe he's an idiot. But but having these conversations, I think, really do need to happen. Most of the time in person. So, because I think hearing this is a lot better than reading it on a social media post or something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing about social media is that you have to use it to start the conversation.
Right.
And I think that's what people are doing. But just because you post something or you read something, that's not where the education ends. That's where the education starts. So you learn that, oh, you know what? Connor tweeted about microaggressions today. Let me learn more about microaggressions. Keiko tweeted about white privilege. Let me learn more about white privilege. To me, social media is where people start the conversation and where they can have a little bit of dialogue to maybe ask appropriate questions. But it definitely should not be where the education ends. And I think that's a huge problem, is people like, well, I read a tweet, I know everything. No, because we are talking about hundreds of years of history and culture that has been whitewashed.
Absolutely.
Which brings us, I think, to Juneteenth. Honestly, if I've got to be honest, this is the first year I've ever heard of Juneteenth. I heard about a month ago that this was happening, looked into it. I'd never heard of it. Keiko, I don't know if that's your experience, but
I had never heard of it. Honestly, I want to say maybe, but I really didn't until Monday staff meeting when Tony mentioned it. And in the staff meeting, I was listening during the staff meeting, I promise. But in the staff meeting, I started Googling it, and I was like, what in the world is this? I've never heard of this. And I want to talk about Juneteenth, and because I know that you celebrate it, and you're originally from Texas, where it originated. But the older I get, the more I've realized how much wasn't taught to us in school. And it makes me almost angry that why was there this whole piece of history that I never knew about?
Well, I think it's important that you examine who's writing history books, who is at the table for those conversations. For such a long time, people writing history books were white people, and generally white people from the South. So, where, they still believe that the Confederacy was the greatest thing to ever happen to this country, even though it was only around for 5 years. I mean, the fact that they want to hold on to something that's so hateful is impressive. And what happens is they end up not telling full stories. There is so much of Black history, there's so much of Native American history that gets left out of these textbooks because of the people that wrote them. Nobody wants to call themselves a loser, especially to have it printed in a book. But the fact is that these people were losers. I mean, in the Confederacy. I mean, You know, I mean, facts are facts.
To put it in modern day terms.
And you know, so I think it's important, you know, when we celebrate Juneteenth to acknowledge that so much of the history that we learned in school has been whitewashed. And the reason a lot of Black people know about Juneteenth is because we had to do our own research about our own holiday. We have to learn more about our history than everybody else because we know from our parents that what we're learning in school isn't necessarily the truth. And so it was important for my family and a lot of Black families to give a real history and a better understanding and better context of these cultural events. You know, something that a lot of people didn't know about was Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right. You know, that was a thriving community for Black people that white people saw how prosperous it was. There we go, words. And
are you a reporter?
Right. words are difficult sometimes.
Like
how prosperous it was becoming, and then they decided to burn it down. And there was very little news coverage, and you don't see that in history books. But that was, you know, just builds onto modern day racism of just every time Black people and the Black community starts to rise up and elevate itself, it has been pushed down. And right. I think that's what you're seeing with this movement. Now, to bring it to Juneteenth, why we celebrate it is because this was the actual freeing of all slaves in the United States. Because Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, but because there was no internet, because there were no phones, not everybody knew the war was over. So what Juneteenth celebrates is 2 years after he signed that, that's when the last slaves in Texas knew that they were free. So that's what we are celebrating. And that's why you sometimes hear it referred to as Freedom Day. It's also referred to as Jubilee Day, because it's really a joyous celebration of all Black people 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, were finally free.
That's how slow news traveled back then, which is wild. Pragati says that she agrees with you. Historical facts have been picked by who was writing the books. And I want to ask you, how did you celebrate?
I mean, we're from the South, so we always celebrated with a cookout. You know, generally it's like you get together with your friends and it's just like a fun cookout. Now, because my mom is an academic and I was so mad at her at the time, generally it would involve some reading and some cultural, generally history reading, an essay by, you know, Black authors, and just a time to really be proud of being Black and where and how far, you know, our community has come. So, you know, I was always like so salty with her because I'd be like, Mom, like, I don't want to read. Like, it's the weekend or it's whatever. Like, it's a holiday. Like, why should I be reading?
Why are you giving me homework?
Exactly. I'd be so mad. But now I can understand and I appreciate why she did that. Mm-hmm. And if I ever have kids, they will be doing the exact same thing. So they can be mad at me as they grow up too.
I love that. Shout out to Mama C.
Yes.
Or the big A.
Not the big A.
Well, shout out to Mama Chloe.
She did say hello to you, just to let you know. My mother and father said hello, and Anne Marie says hello. Hi, Annie.
Hello.
Oh, shoot. I just had a point and just ran away.
So many topics that just went through your head, and I got a little preachy a little bit, so I apologize.
No, but I love that, and I love that we are able to have these conversations. I think like one important thing is like just being able to have these open conversations. We all three of us come from different backgrounds and everything, but like Tony and I ended up having a great conversation about race and like how we react to things in the office yesterday, and I left that talk and I ended up texting him afterwards and was like, I just so appreciate being able to talk about this with you. because there's been so many people, and Connor, I know that you've gotten it way more than I have, just because you've told me some stories, but there's been so many people online who are so quick to jump at each other and take away from the actual message. Like, you know, when we say Black Lives Matter, I'm not saying all lives don't matter, but right now, Black lives are in trouble and they need you. And I've seen so many people. I mean, listen, I've been blocked by family members on Facebook. I have been attacked by people, like random people that I don't even know. And I'm not even being like preachy or anything. And so, like, I know that you've gotten a lot of that, especially with being in news. How have you handled those situations?
I don't even, you know, it's I handle it just one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it comes from, you have to be confident in what you post, because, and just like you have to be confident in what you say, you can't. I know that when I post something, I post it because I believe in it wholeheartedly. So there's nobody that can shake me to change my mind on how I feel because I posted it. I will engage with somebody who doesn't necessarily agree with me, but generally if they don't agree with me and they want to get testy, we'll say, you get one response and then I'm done. Right. You know, like, I will let you know that, like, I heard you, because I think people want to be heard. So I will say, I heard you, I'm responding. And then if they keep going and they're not listening to what I'm saying or comprehending, there's no point. You can't fight with everybody, because it comes down to, you know, my own sanity and my own mental health. My mental health is not good when I am fighting with people on the internet that I don't care about. Right. Like, because then I get so wrapped up in, oh my gosh, well, this person said this and they said, I don't know you. I don't know you from a can of paint. So I don't need to invest a lot of energy. And I think that's been part of my journey this time around, is really focusing on my mental health and what I can tolerate. And before, I would take on everything. Like, I'm going to educate the entire world on racism and make sure that everybody that I interact with knows a little bit about racism and my experience. The problem with that is that every conversation I have about my experience, I'm giving a little bit of myself to them. And if they're not willing to receive it, then I am now emotionally exhausted for no reason. And so I realized that I can't and I won't be the beginning conversation for people. So if people now, when people want to talk to me about race, come with real questions, come with educated questions, so we can have a meaningful discussion. But if you're just talking to me about race or asking me questions about race to make yourself and make your white guilt go away, that's not me. I have to just say, like, come back when you've educated yourself on a particular topic, and I am more than willing to have the conversation. But it's not fair to your Black friends to put your guilt onto them because you don't know. I didn't know about Black history when I was younger, but I had to learn, and I had to do extra reading and extra learning to learn just about my history.
Right.
You know, black men, young Black men have the fastest growing rate of suicide in the country. I mean, it's what we do. I mean, do you, from your point of view, do you think, I mean, racism plays into this? And you know, and I preface that up front that there is a lot of health inequity, you know, in this country. You know, there aren't nearly as many in you know, traditionally African American neighborhoods that of mental health professionals. I mean, do you think racism plays into, you know, some of the mental health issues in the Black community, and this fast growing suicide rate that we're trying to figure out what to do?
Oh, absolutely. I think that people don't understand that our country is like built on racism and built off the backs of slaves. So again, we talk about Juneteenth and celebrating the end of slavery, but slavery is not really over. We have an education system that does not help Black people. The school to prison pipeline is very real. If you look at low income areas, they're predominantly Black. If you look at people in jail, predominantly Black, even though we don't make up that percentage of the population. You look at how healthcare is treated in the Black community, and it's just all of these things add to why we say that we are still oppressed and we have to dismantle a system. Right now, we are living in a system that does not want Black people to succeed. Again, when you look at jails, you know, the reason jails started to be predominantly Black was because that was how they got their free labor after slavery. So the police were paid to find reasons to put Black people in jail so they could go back to the fields. So really, our prison system and our jail system is an extended form of slavery. The education system, or lack thereof, in most Black communities is a form of slavery because people without education can't succeed, and we know statistically they make less money. So therefore, you are not providing these people in these communities a chance. And then when it comes to health, there's no access, you know, and I think that's part of the reason why we have this, why the Black Lives Matter movement this time around feels so much bigger and different, is because the Black community, we are dealing with not only the COVID-19 pandemic, but we are dealing with the drug epidemic. And there is a president that a lot of people in the Black community do not support. So, you know, you have COVID-19, you have these mental health issues, and the Black people aren't feeling heard. So what happens is you have a revolution or an uprising, and that's what we're seeing. So hopefully in all of this, we will start to see more focus on Black healthcare, Black education, and Black, and acknowledging how our prison system works, because it's really important that we understand that racism isn't just the interpersonal communications, but it's how our society works and how it perceives Black people. We are not all thugs, we are not all criminals, but yet one Black person does something wrong and everybody wants to put that one image on them. And that's what we're trying to change, is that real people need to understand that we are millions of people. Are we all good? No. Are we all bad? Absolutely not. And so it's important to start seeing Black people, Native Americans, Asians, and Latinx community as individuals and not as a stereotype.
I think that's really important. And I know I'm much older than you. You know, we've discussed this, how much older I am than Keiko. And before this, you and I discussed how much older I am than you. So I'm the old guy on the block. And it's really interesting that you say that. The only, when I was a kid, the only representation I saw of a Black family was Good Times. That show, it was people in
Good Times, anytime you need a baby. Good times.
But that was the representation, and it was like, hey, this must be what it's like.
Right.
And not until the Cosby Show, showing a well-to-do, an upper middle class family, that it was like, oh wow. I mean, it really is fascinating how that has talking to your point about history, of how we get our realities from really unfair unfair mediums.
Yeah.
Right, but what's not fair is you have as equally trashy TV about white people, but that's just them. I mean, no shade to Keiko from Jersey, but we got the Jersey Shore. And people
they weren't all from Jersey, okay?
But people accepted that as, oh, those are just people from Jersey, or those are just those people. But if you had a show like that about Black people, for some reason, that stereotype would be placed on all Black people, and that would represent an entire community. And I think that's what we are trying to really, or that's what I am trying to really dismantle, is that you have to approach everybody and whatever, regardless of what they look like, you have to approach them as an individual. Saying that you are colorblind no longer works because it's not accurate. In the same way we acknowledge different sexes from men to women, and we celebrate women, and just like, and we celebrate men, that's what we need to do with race, is we need to be able to celebrate that we are different and that we come culturally different backgrounds, but that's okay. It's okay to be different, but we can't treat people like a stereotype.
I love that you brought that up, because so many people I have seen posting like, I don't see color. And I've been reading up on things. I've told you myself, like, listen, I thought I knew a lot. I thought that not being racist was good enough, but it's not, and I'm learning and I'm doing better. And I've seen so many people posting, I don't see color. And I always like stop and I pause and like, okay, but you have to. Like, and I watched the movie The Hate U Give, which if anyone is looking for movies,
the book is a little better, but
I heard that the book was better. I want to read it, but I'm in the middle of about 3 books right now. But in the movie, Star has a white boyfriend, and he says to her, like, I don't see color. Like, I see you. I love you. And she's like, okay, but you don't see me if you don't see the color of my skin. And I feel like that's so important for people to hear, for white people to hear specifically, because because you notice someone like Connor's black, Tony's white, I'm yellow. I'll just color myself yellow. And like, just because you see like the different color skin doesn't mean that you're being racist. You're just acknowledging it, and that's part of who you are.
Right. And part of the problem with, I think, our generation, and maybe people slightly older than us, is they were taught not to see color. Like, that was the standard, because these were the parents that were coming out of the civil rights movement. And so it was all about like, I don't see color. And I think that's what was taught to people, is I don't see color. And that was what was socially acceptable. But now now it's like, I need you to see me. I need you to see and acknowledge my blackness. I am proud of my blackness, and my blackness is what makes me an individual. So now I need you to acknowledge that I am an individual in this skin. Yeah. And, I think that part of it's cultural context, but again, everybody just needs to be open to learning, because I am still learning. I don't get it right all the time. And I want people to understand that we're all learning. We're all going to make mistakes. But if somebody calls you out, again, don't be defensive. Just say, hey, what did I do? And how can I be better? Right. Because that's what we all want to do.
How do you handle when someone does make a mistake? Right now in society, it is, people are, fired or whatever. But how would you, if someone, like, let's say is Tony/White, as Keiko so eloquently pointed out. Sorry. No, I'm just playing with it. Says something, that is hurtful or offensive to you, and I mean, how telling me how could I be corrected as far as like what I mean, obviously outside of opening my mind, I mean, what are some other things that I could be doing, or I could be? Is it just listening? Is it?
I think it's education. You have to. I mean, I think there are some keywords, and I'm not going to get all of them. If you need a list, I will send it to Keiko, and she can put it out on social.
I'll share it with everybody.
But some of the keywords that come to mind are white privilege. People need to understand that. They need to be open to it. Colorblindness needs to stop. Microaggressions, super important. And then I think after that, it's just being a basic human being and approaching situations with compassion and empathy. I think that what we have right now is a community, aka Black people, that are saying that they are hurting. And it seems that people that say all lives matter are kicking a community down that's saying we need help. And in the same way, somebody would reach out for help if they were suicidal. That's how we need to handle the Black Lives Matter movement. Is the same way you would handle somebody that said, I am not well, please help me. Because that's what's happening, is you have a race of people that are saying, we are not well, we are not being treated fairly, this is bad, please help us. And that's why I think it's just not fair to say all lives matter. That's such a dumb statement. If all lives matter, then you shouldn't have a problem with people saying Black Lives Matter, because Black lives are in all lives.
Right. My dad says that there's a book called "It's Okay to Be Different" by Todd. I don't know why I lean in when I read people's comments.
I love it.
You can hear me better.
You're just playing up the drama.
Right? I don't know what I'm doing here. It's Okay to Be Different by Todd Parr is a kid's book that adults can benefit to. And Pragati says that she is brown, embraces it, see the other person's color and embrace it, virtually, of course. And that we have to stop with the turning away and ignoring it mentally. I
think that, I can say that I know that there are people that are trying. And especially, I've discovered this, and again, I'm going to make a generalization, so don't at me in the comments about not all white people. But traditionally, white men have the biggest problem with this, because they have benefited the most from this system of oppression. So to tell them that they have privilege seems to be something that they will acknowledge, but they don't want to internalize. And I think that's, once we get white men to understand their status in society, and maybe it's not even get them to understand, but get them to want to bring everybody up. Because there seems to be this mentality that, oh, if Black people come up, then I'm going to go down. No, and if you bring everybody up, then everything just becomes better and quality of life. Right. Because, it just seems to be a hard conversation. And I still hear things like, oh, well, I have a Black friend and he tells me that this is okay. Well, that's not okay, because I'm telling you that what you said was not appropriate. And so if I'm telling you as a Black person, as an individual, then my complaint, my observation should be acknowledged as an individual, because another individual doesn't necessarily have the same experience that I have. Right. So, and I think that's really important to understand, is just because somebody calls you out doesn't mean you consult with your other Black friend or your other minority friend to make you feel better, because that's just not appropriate.
Well, and you mentioned white privilege, and I feel like you also called me out for tweeting about it. So I feel like it's so important for people to understand, because I'll admit, when I first heard that term white privilege, I was like, whoa, that's a lot. But the more I read about it, the more I understood white privilege doesn't mean it. It's not, I would want to say for everyone, it's not intended as an insult. It's a fact.
Yeah. What's the easiest way to describe it? It's basically the fact that as Black people, as minorities, we are always confronted with the fact that we are Black. So there's a couple different terms. Dual consciousness is one of them, that when we walk into a room and we walk into a space, we are figuring out how our presence is defined by other people before we even open our mouth. And these are just and white people don't have that. White people are able to walk into a room and just be Dan, or just be Bob, or whoever they are. And people, there's no preconceived notion. Tony, exactly.
Yeah.
There's no preconceived notion of who they are, what they're going to be. Traditionally, nobody's going to grab their purse or feel uncomfortable. Me as a Black man, I know that when I walk into a foreign space, people are uncomfortable with my presence. And I am fully aware of that my presence is a threat just by me walking in before I even open my mouth and tell people how fabulous I am. I mean,
I mean, it's pretty fabulous. I'm not trying to be biased.
And so I think that's part of white privilege, is that there's just things that white people don't have to comprehend that people that are Black or brown or minorities deal with on an everyday basis. That it doesn't mean that you've had a better life than Black people. It doesn't mean that you are an elevated status. It just simply means the privilege part is that you don't have to think about the color of your skin 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
That's honestly a very, very good kind of wrap of what that is. And I don't think that is said enough. And, I've heard it. I've had arguments with folks about it. And, I think you said it so eloquently.
Melissa writes and also says, "Well said, Connor."
Oh, hi, Melissa. But yeah, I think that, to, start to wrap up this conversation, there is so much learning that everybody can do. Mm-hmm. And the learning on this will hopefully never end. And, I think the goal really in moving forward is just to get people to a place of understanding of their privilege and what they can do to help elevate the voices that aren't being heard. I think that what's been so beautiful and so amazing of this Black Lives Matter movement now is that there have been so many vocal allies. Mm-hmm. Because Black people can say things until we are blue in the face and until we can't scream anymore. But sometimes you just need somebody that looks like you or that isn't you to say it. It's almost like if your mom tells you to do something, you might do it, you might not. But the second your aunt or your friend's mom tells you to do something, you're going to do it and you're going to listen. So I think that right now, that's kind of what is happening, is that more people are getting involved. Therefore, more people are open to listening, because the Black people screaming at the top of their lungs are no longer the angry Black people, but it's a message supported by allies. So it's really important for allies to use their voices. It's really important for allies, if you're at a protest, to get between police officers and Black people, because we know that police officers treat white people differently. And it's important to listen. Mm-hmm. But again, it's a tough balance between using your voice and knowing when to use your voice and listening. Right. But I can't say enough that, if these protests continue and they get violent, that the allies' job is literally to stand between police officers and Black people, because your job is to protect them, because your life, as we've said, matters more. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a really important fact. But it's also, people need to be safe and use a little bit of sense when it comes to these situations, and know what you're getting yourself into if you do decide to make your voice heard that way.
And can we also say, and maybe I'm wrong on that, we need to stop making this a political issue. This is not a Republican issue, a Democrat issue. This is a human issue at the end of the day. No matter who you support politically, mm-hmm. This is something we should all be coming together on, not going into our faction and separating ourselves. Mm-hmm.
Right, but I think that it's easy. Again, people are trying to make themselves feel better about how they feel about the situation. So therefore, they don't support the Black Lives Matter movement. So they don't want to be overtly racist. So they make it about other things. So then it becomes political. So now people can argue about it without coming off as racist.
Right.
So I always talk about, there's a lot of noise around this because people want to argue and they want to be objective, but they don't want to be called racist, regardless of how racist they actually are. So then it doesn't become about the issue. It becomes about the protesters. It becomes about the looters. It becomes about, Black Lives Matter. It's before you get involved in debating somebody, it's so important to know what the message is that you are actually debating. Black Lives Matter is not a political movement. It is literally saying Black people want the same rights and the same opportunities for a system that is not working for them.
Right.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it becomes political is how we get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's an important distinction. Everybody wants equal rights. I think unless you are a complete bigot, that is something that you want everybody to have is equal opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You want Black people, white people, Asian people, everybody to have the same opportunities to succeed and the same opportunities to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, like we are not saying that we want Black people to be better. We want them to be up here. We are saying that we just want to start on the same playing field.
Right.
And, but as we progress, we are seeing that some of the talking points are becoming political. We are seeing, talks about defunding police.
Right.
That's a political movement, however you feel about it, right now we can't even agree on what that means. Right?
Right.
Like some people want to say that defunding the police means reallocating money. Some people want to see, police completely disbanded.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just important that you understand what you are arguing about before you start to weigh in. Because I've had so many conversations with people, and really, I think the accepted term for the accepted definition for defunding the police is just reallocating money. And understanding what how big police budgets are and what are they really for? A lot of times it's for military supplies. Why do we need that if we had more mental health counselors available? So police aren't going to domestic violence situations. And so they aren't dealing with things they're not trained to deal with. Police really aren't trained as social workers. Leave the social working jobs to the social worker. So take some of the police money and put it there. And that is one way to look at defunding the police.
Mm-hmm. We want to get to a few of these comments. Pragny says, we also need to acknowledge that white privilege is also a generalization, and white people may perceive that as ignoring their struggles. And I think it needs to be explained better to white people. And Melissa says, people are so defensive. It's hard to know, even though you may not be racist, you've been silent. Some people get too distracted by details and news headlines. Do we want to love and respect each other or not? We were created equal or not? Point blank. These are a lot of great comments. I love this.
Yeah, no, it's like, I think that was a good point about the white privilege is that, I think I mentioned it, that it's really not saying that your life has been better. It's just saying that you have been afforded opportunities that might have, that came from being white. And also the fact, and I think those opportunities come in, your stress level has been decreased comparatively because you're not worried about the color of your skin.
Right.
Granted, I will say, I think I've had a better life than some white people, and I don't benefit from white privilege.
Right.
But there's still white privilege in people that have tough lives.
Right. I think that's so important because I feel like that's one thing that people take from that, and they're like, well, no, I've had struggles. I have struggled, and I've had conversations with people. I'm like, okay, I'm not denying your struggles, but it's not the same thing here. And I think another really important thing to note is, having these conversations, it's so important that you're willing to make a mistake.
Not too big of a mistake.
Not too big of a mistake. Don't make a huge mistake. But like when we're having these conversations and you're using your words, like I think a lot of us are waking up and understanding things a lot better. And I think it was Twitch, who is, if no one knows who Twitch is, he's Ellen DeGeneres' DJ. Yep. So she had him on one day and she was asking him like, hey, what can me and more white people as allies do? And he explained it so beautifully that like it made me feel more comfortable talking about things. He was saying, we need you to stand up. We need you to say things. Even if you say the wrong thing, you have people in your corner that can come to you and be like, hey, I see what you were trying to say there, and I appreciate the support. However, next time you want to word it this way because it was taken that way. you know, and I feel like that's so important for people to understand, because we're all going to make mistakes. You know, no one's really expected to get it 100% correct right now, but you have to be willing to make those mistakes so that other people can correct you, so that you can learn from that and then grow.
That's exactly right. And go ahead, Tony.
No, and I was just going to say, but I think that on my end takes an open mind. And
Right.
I don't know how many folks have open minds right now. And we all need to be opening up our minds and saying, wait, you know, I can't for a minute even claim to understand not being able to walk into a room and, you know, being accepted for being, you know, oh, there he is. And you know, honestly, I've been in stores where I'll walk in and a black guy will walk in and the manager will follow the black guy, pretend to be sweeping up or something. And I know I don't have to worry about it. It's just, so I'm so grateful that you are sharing this and we're having this good conversation and not screaming at one another.
Not yet. That's for the after show. The after show is when the screaming starts. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
No, but again, you know, I think that that's such an excellent point that, you know, I saw on Twitter that white privilege is being able to walk out of a store and not buy anything and be comfortable. Because I can tell you that I am not comfortable leaving a store without buying something. It is the weirdest thing. And because I'm just like, I don't want anybody in here to think that I stole something.
Right.
And that is, you know, because like I didn't even realize that was weird until probably college. Because it was just like a normal thing that I would just, if I walked into a store and I would buy like a pack of gum or some socks, because I was like, I'm going to let everybody know that I didn't steal anything. So I bought something. And, you know, so I think that these, you know, as we talk about mental health, these are stressors that are weighing in on your black and brown friends and colleagues, is, you know, just little things like walking into a store, not buying something, crossing the street and watching, you know, women turn their purse on the other side, watching when people cross the street so they don't have to interact with you, getting off elevators even. I mean, these microaggressions and these racist or racially insensitive acts are, they're a lot, and they come at us so much that sometimes we don't even process them, or I don't process it as a racist act until I'm like, oh, I just crossed the street, and did they double tap their locks to make sure that as I was crossing the street, their doors were locked? Like, I'm not interested in your Ford Focus. But
nobody is.
But I just think that the more people understand, the better we can all be, because, you know, that's why I don't mind talking to people about this that are willing to listen, is because I think we all become better from opening our hearts and our minds and being open-minded to being challenged how we think about things.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of people, this has been ingrained in their head since they were born, whether it's a conscious bias or a subconscious bias. And the more we are aware, the more we can change. Is it going to happen overnight? Absolutely not. But if you can catch yourself being, you know, racially insensitive, then you'll just be better for the next time. And then you can educate your friends and be like, oh, hey, so I remember when I used to do this, and this is how I stopped, because I realized that this was not important. You know, again, I think we're all just trying to be better and move forward towards a society when we can really not be judged by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character.
Absolutely.
And knowing Keiko, her character kind of sucks.
Whoa, wait a minute.
I'm just kidding.
High five to you.
Where'd I come from?
And I know we're coming up on the hour, but and this is going to, you know, this is probably going to cause some waves here, but what is this story about the delivery room?
Oh my God. What a great way to end this. Because you're totally insane. Do you want me to tell it?
Oh my gosh.
Let me tell it, because you're going to get too detailed. Nobody needs that on Facebook.
Again, that's for the after show.
Right. Okay. So when I was pregnant, Connor was the first coworker that I told. I say we because Melissa Wrightson was pregnant at the same time. So the two of us were like, we have to tell Connor. Why we told Connor over like our bosses or our teammates, like I have no idea. But
well, because I would give you the best reaction because I was the most excited for both of y'all.
He truly
even though I didn't really believe Keiko at all. I was like, wait, is this real? Like, stop playing with me.
So Connor was like our go-to person when we were pregnant. He would bring us cheesecake. We like made a deal with him. Like, listen, if either one of us go into labor, like you've got to be there. Connor had to fill in for me when I had the baby. Owen, I say baby, he's a toddler. When I had Owen, Connor had to step in and fill in for me. So he was like our go-to guy. So when we made like a plan, listen, when I go into labor, someone's got to pick up my mom from the airport. So my mom got the call and I told Connor because he was at work and we found out at work that we're having the baby. So he was like, all right, I'm going to take care of it. I'll call your mom. So Connor picked up my mom from the airport and brought her to the hospital. That is all Connor was supposed to do. Connor stayed in the delivery room. Connor stayed in the delivery room till like 5, 6 o'clock.
Yes, it was like right. I mean, if we're not going to get too detailed, then well, whatever. We're all friends here, right?
Oh gosh.
It was right when it was. I stayed until you went to the bathtub.
Oh yeah, when you're in labor, sometimes like being in the bathtub helps with the pain. So like I was in the bathtub just ignoring him. But like thank God he was there because he hung out with my mom who was also sitting in the delivery room because apparently it was a party.
Is this you're missing the whole point of the story, Keiko?
I know.
So so the nurses are coming in to check on Keiko, and they're all just like poking and prodding and making sure that everything is moving the way it's supposed to be moving. So then one of the nurses comes in, Keiko's standing here, the nurse comes in, stands right here, and she says, all right, I'm gonna need you to open up. And then Keiko starts to open her legs. And the nurse was like, no, I need you to open your mouth, I need to take your temperature.
Mind you, I also want to say, like, I had just gotten done with work, so I'd been up for like 24 hours at this point. Like, I'm in pain. I didn't know what was going on. So, yes.
It was just really funny.
I've
I was like,
seen it all. And my mom walked around the hospital telling everyone that Connor was her son.
Obviously.
And now they both tell everyone that they delivered Owen.
Mm-hmm. It was a team effort. I mean, I don't handle pain very well, so I had to like.
You guys did a great job.
I had to tag team and like tag Keiko in to like actually give birth. But I mean, it was really me that did like a lot of the labor and the delivery. So, you're welcome, Keiko.
Every life event I have had has turned into Connor's life event.
I mean, Keiko gets married. I get a standing ovation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we just take turns.
Well, as your coworker now, Keiko, your mom will be taking an Uber if you get pregnant.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know why.
Tony, don't worry. I will be there. So
Thank you.
I will be picking up Mama Chloe from the airport. We'll probably get there at the same time. So no need. Don't try to like take my territory. Like it's all good. Keiko's spoken for. And Mama Chloe is spoken for. Like that's my territory.
Don't come for them.
Exactly. Nope. We are playing no games about this.
Oh gosh. This is
round 2 will be even better because we'll know what to expect. And so Mama Chloe and I will just have a better time and we'll just do a better job convincing people that Keiko and I are siblings.
I'm pretty sure we had everyone convinced.
Yeah. Like minus the eye rolls when people are like, yeah, I'm Keiko's brother. And they're like, okay.
But Nobody questioned it.
I know.
They just waited until we left the room, so it was fine.
But I think the best part, and I'm pretty sure Keiko's already told you this, was that so Keiko's obsessed with Shark Week, and Owen was born on Shark Week, so Keiko got to go into labor watching sharks.
I did.
So I thought that was like really cool because that was really important for her that she go into labor during Shark Week.
And now her baby listens to Baby Shark.
I know.
Doot, doot, doot.
I
Wait,
didn't
is that
realize like how much I was gonna curse myself on that one. But yes. And now that we get to have everything virtual, everyone who has a meeting with me gets to listen to Baby Shark.
That's too fun. So are there any final questions that we need to discuss about race before we end this beautiful chat?
Oh.
Speak now or forever hold
Right.
your applause.
I think we've covered so many great things, and I want to thank you again for being on here, sharing your stories, and just kind of opening people's eyes a little more.
You know, I think it's important just to realize, and I'll say it again because I'm sure I've said it 100 times. We are all different, and it's time that we start celebrating our differences, because that's what makes us so special, is the fact that we are different. And so there's so much that we can learn. And when we talk about history, it's important that you do a little bit maybe more research on cultural events that have happened, because there's so much that we don't know about Native American history, Asian American history, Black history, and even our own, Civil War and the Holocaust. There's so much history we don't know because it's been whitewashed. So do a little extra research, dig a little deeper, have fun, be educated.
Love it.
Thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thanks,
Absolutely,
Connor.
this was so much fun. And next time we'll do, for the after show, we'll have cocktails.
I love cocktails. All right. Thank you, everybody. Happy Juneteenth and
Yes.
happy Friday.
Happy Friday.